Okay, so I just wanted to take an opportunity to give a formal introduction to the Arctic Integrated Ecosystem Research Program that I've been mentioning on our calls for the last couple of years. We've got the program off the ground now. Our board made funding decisions in May, and we had a kickoff meeting to get us started in June, and we're well on our way now. So just to give you a little background, these Integrated Ecosystem Research Programs, we abbreviate them IERPs. They're multidisciplinary marine science programs, and the PIs commit to participate for 5 years. So this one is, the field program is set to go through 2021 with 3 years of field data collection followed by analysis. And North Pacific Research Board puts these on. This is our third IERP. We've done one in the Bering Sea and one in the Gulf of Alaska, and now we're doing an Arctic one that's centered on the northern Bering Sea and the Chukchi Sea. And one of the hallmarks of these programs is that NPRB takes a really active role in program management to really facilitate effective communication throughout the program, to really try to make sure that we make some advances in multidisciplinary analyses and kind of break people out of their research silos a little bit. So we have mandatory annual PI meetings where all the folks who are funded by the program get together for 3 or 4 days once a year and sit together and look at their data. We've also begun hosting logistics planning meetings prior to every field season. So we've got one coming up November 14th and 15th to coordinate our 2017 field season. And during those meetings, we'll do things like make sure that all of the research crews participants are standardizing their data collection protocols so that when they get to the analysis phase, they don't have a lot of work to do, even just to begin looking at apples to apples instead of apples to oranges. The other thing we've asked folks to do is we've got 2 teams doing 2 separate cruises in different areas in different seasons, and I'll explain that in a minute. But one of the things we're doing is having them have a discussion about, well, you know, inevitably sometimes time is lost on these cruises to weather days or ice conditions, etc. So we're going to have them talk about prioritizing field stations and measurements at each station so that if time is lost, everybody can be on the same page well ahead of time about how sampling will be prioritized. And we're asking each of them to think about not only what data are important for their particular piece of the program, but also how might someone else in another aspect of the program be relying on their data as they make those decisions. So I think having those conversations early will help us have a more cohesive program in the end. We also put on monthly webinars or conference calls where all the folks associated with the program call in. And just like the updates we've just heard from Catherine and Katrin, we have folks on the phone give updates on what they're doing, and it just kind of helps facilitate effective communication throughout the program. So here's just a photo of some of our participants. This was taken at our kickoff meeting in June. We have 27 funded PIs representing 11 different institutions. But this is just the start. Many of them have postdocs and graduate students and technicians working with them. So we have many more than 27 people involved in this program. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we've also got representatives from 22 existing separately funded projects that are collaborating with us as well. So to give you some background on who's funding this program, North Pacific Research Board, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and the North Slope Borough Shell Baseline Studies Program, which is now formally known as the Collaborative Alaskan Arctic Studies Program. All put money into this, and we also have some money coming in from the Office of Naval Research's Marine Mammals and Biology Program. They're supporting some of the costs for some of our acoustic recorders for marine mammals. We also have significant in-kind support coming in from NOAA, from both Alaska Fisheries Science Center and Pacific Marine Environmental Lab, as well as the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So all told, this is about a $15.5 million investment just for the main 5-year component from 2016 to 2021. And then we do plan to have a synthesis phase that'll go from 2021 till about 23 or 24 as well. So what's this program focusing on? Our overarching question is how will reductions in Arctic sea ice and the associated changes in the physical environment influence the flow of energy through the ecosystem in the Chukchi Sea, that then influence transport, seasonal composition, distribution, and production of phytoplankton, particulate matter, zooplankton, fishes, benthic invertebrates, seabirds, and marine mammals. The timing, magnitude, and fate of the primary and secondary productivity. Partitioning or flux of energy between pelagic and the benthic realms. Distribution, condition, and standing stock of large crustacean zooplankton that serve as the prey base for the upper trophic level fish and seabirds. The assemblages, distributions, abundances, and condition of larval and early juvenile fishes that influence the recruitment of success of the later life stages. Density of marine mammals and seabirds, and ultimately the human use of and interaction with the marine environment. So a little bit about the scope and our plans for research cruises. University of Alaska Fairbanks will be running cruises aboard the vessel Sekuliak that will run from the northern Bering Sea up to through the southern Chukchi Sea as far as Cape Lisburne. And they'll be doing those cruises in June of 2017 and 2018. You can see their sampling stations on the map there. They'll mostly be focused on making some novel measurements of rate processes. So on physical, chemical, and biological oceanography, we'll be collecting some really nice information about the rates of advection, deposition, and growth and respiration of several of the primary and secondary biological parameters. So they'll be setting up process stations as they run south to north, and then as they run north back south, they'll be hitting all of the survey stations that you see there marked by the black dots. They'll also be doing some fish sampling as well, and possibly some seabird and marine mammal visual observations. And then NOAA will be leading cruises aboard a chartered fishing vessel that will occur in a little bit in the Beaufort Sea and then also in the Chukchi Sea. They'll be out mostly in August and September, perhaps a bit in early October, and they'll be running their cruises in 2017 and 2019. Their plan is to start on the Beaufort Sea side as long as ice allows, and then work west and south, and trying their best to avoid any interactions with subsistence, especially whaling. And they'll be focusing on the drivers of the distribution of fish, especially Arctic and saffron cod and pink and chum salmon. However, they'll also be collecting everything from physical and chemical and biological oceanography all the way up through seabirds. And this project represents phase 2 of an earlier project that was funded by BOEM that was called Arctic Ice. So they'll be reoccupying many of the same stations that they did in 2012 and 2013. Oh, I should mention that NOAA will also have several autonomous platforms associated with this program. So they'll have some autonomous samplers looking at oceanography and drift. They'll have a sail drone and I believe maybe a wave glider. And so they'll have and a glider as well. So they'll have quite a few autonomous platforms running around doing some technology development as well associated with the program. We also have Kate Stafford putting out acoustic recorders on our moorings. Most of her work is associated with the moorings that the UAF team is doing, so they'll be located in the Bering Strait and the southern Chukchi Sea. And we also have a social science component that will study the Chukchi coastal community's understanding of and responses to environmental change. And the PIs for that include Henry Huntington, Julie Raymond Yakubian, and Noah Naylor of the Northwest Arctic Borough, and we also have North Slope Borough. We have Kayan Harcharek from the North Slope Borough involved as well. So in terms of what we're doing with regard to communication and communicating with communities especially, we've developed some 2-page flyers that summarize our cruises, and we've begun outreach to several groups, including all of the marine mammal co-management groups that are in the area. So we're giving presentations to the Indigenous Peoples Council on Marine Mammals tomorrow. We also have presentations on the agendas for the Alaska Beluga Whale Committee in early November and the Alaska Eskimo Whaling Commission. We've already given them one presentation in July, and we'll be speaking with them again in early December. We've also asked for time on the agendas of upcoming meetings of the Eskimo Walrus Commission and the Ice Seal Committee, as well as the Arctic Waterways Safety Committee. And we've also given a couple of presentations to other IARPC groups. So the DBO team, we spoke to them specifically about how we plan to sample DBO stations, and we give a presentation to the IARPC logistics group as well. And one of the things that we're looking at, especially in the context of what the Arctic Waterway Safety Committee is doing, is looking at ways that we can adjust our cruise plans to best avoid interactions with subsistence activities. Especially for our spring cruise, there will be walrus harvest and some whaling going on at the time that we plan our cruise. So our PIs have made every effort to reach out to interested parties and ask for suggestions about how they could adjust their cruise plans to avoid any negative interactions. And so we'll continue those conversations up until the cruise begins and throughout the cruise as well. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we are collaborating and coordinating with 22 other federally funded research projects. When we put out our call for proposals, before putting out that call, we had asked for existing projects to commit to collaborating so that we could put out an appendix in our RFP that would let the research community know what other projects they might be able to leverage. And so at the time we put out the RFP, we had 22 projects commit to doing that. And what that means is they've agreed to send representatives to our annual PI meetings, and they've agreed to share data within our password-protected portal for the program. And we've been really thrilled that we've had great participation. We've had 20 of the 22 projects send representatives to our kickoff meeting in June to really begin talking about how we can coordinate among our respective programs, and that we expect that to continue. The two that weren't able to make it were only absent because of schedule conflicts. So I've been really happy with the level of participation we've had as far as coordination so far. And we are still actively looking for additional partners that are interested in joining us. So if you have a research project you'd like to try to connect to our program, please feel free to get in touch with me or one of the other PIs. We will host at the Alaska Marine Science Symposium in late January. We're planning to host a workshop on the Friday of AMSS from 9 in the morning until noon, where we'll give a presentation similar to this, but probably with some more detail about what we'll be doing as far as field collection and kind of introduce the program. But most of the workshop will focus on communication with the audience in terms of who has ideas about new ways that we could collaborate or coordinate with other projects. And we hope to really gain some new partners through that workshop as well. We're also participating in the Pacific Arctic group, and we have plans to sample the Distributed Biological Observatory. We're also interested in scaling what we're doing on a regional scale to take it up to a pan-Arctic scale via collaboration with other international programs. So we're exploring that now, and we're also actively seeking partners for our synthesis phase. The existing program does not include a modeling effort specifically. Some of our collaborators are doing modeling that will connect, but we would have liked to go further in terms of funding modeling ourselves. So we anticipate that the synthesis phase may bring in modeling that would use the data that we collect during the field sampling. So we're actively seeking partners to fund that synthesis at the moment, and that synthesis will probably get started around the time that the main field program ends in 2021, and it will go for 2 or 3 years. We're also developing an integrated work plan, and this document should become public on our website within the next few weeks. It's just going to be a cohesive document that will describe the scope of the program, including our specific hypotheses that were posed in each of the proposals, as well as our cruise plans. And we're really hoping that members of the scientific community will use it as a reference as they develop proposals to other funding agencies to really illustrate how whatever work they're proposing would integrate with our program and leverage what we're doing. Oh, and I've mentioned already that we're seeking partners for our synthesis. So there's my contact information. We have a steering committee that's got 5 members. They're the lead PIs from each of the 5 main projects that we funded. Ed Farley of NOAA has volunteered to be our steering committee chair for at least the next year. So his email is there. Some of our other steering committee members include Seth Danielson of University of Alaska Fairbanks, Carol Ladd of NOAA's PMEL, Kate Stafford from University of Washington, and Henry Huntington of Huntington Consulting. I believe that's all I had. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Are there any questions for Danielle?